The sculpture in question has belonged to Fred for years. Can be seen perched precariously on a high shelf above his reading chair in a photograph taken a week earlier. Moreover, that morning, shortly after 9 o'clock, at which time Fred habitually read the morning paper, a moderate earthquake, see the evidence here in the seismograph, had shaken all the houses in the neighborhood. Many similar items were jiggled off shelves and tables in the neighborhood that day. There's no evidence that Tom was anywhere nearby, no sign of breaking or entering, no fingerprints, no DNA, etc. In all likelihood, says the defense, Fred's death was by natural causes, not a murder, not a death with an intending and intelligent author. Well, now, Tom's acquittal seems quite sure, but the prosecutor isn't finished. He calls an expert witness, Professor Plantinga. Do you believe that Tom murdered Fred? Yes, I do. But hasn't the defense shown that it was an accident, a death by natural causes, not a murder? No, the defense has shown, I grant, that it could have been an accident, but not that it was an accident. There is no inconsistency between the case that the defense has made and the proposition, which I find entirely reasonable, that Tom was the deliberate author of Fred's death. Do you deny that there was an earthquake sufficient to topple the sculpture? No, but Tom could have arranged for the earthquake to happen just so. Nothing we know in geology by itself rules out the possibility that people can cause earthquakes by wishing for them hard enough. Or, as I've said, Satan and his minions may be involved in one way or another. But I grant you that naturalism, combined with what we know of geology, has the implication that Fred's death almost certainly was not a murder. But naturalism has not been established or even defended in this court. Right. Naturalism, however, is tacitly assumed in all reputable courts of law and throughout scientific investigation. Now, naturalism raises a bit of a problem, I think, for Alvin. As Plantinga makes clear, naturalism is the creed he wants to discredit. This puts him in an awkward position. If he wants to champion the much maligned Michael Behe, he needs to make his peace with naturalism. Now, Alvin calls Behe's work serious and quantitative. I just beg to disagree. It is neither serious nor quantitative. It is a transparent concoction of bad science and bad rhetoric, and has been extremely patiently and well rebutted by well-regarded scientists. Now, Behe's so-called scientific work has been carefully judged by the scientific community and thoroughly rejected. The last thing Michael Behe needs is a defender who insists that naturalism is not to be assumed for the sake of argument. Without naturalism, Behe is just another theological speculator, not the scientist he claims to be. In this regard, a little recent history is relevant. In 1997, Alvin Plantinga and Peter Van Inwagen invited me to come to Notre Dame to debate Michael Behe on the subject of his first book, Darwin's Black Box. According to them, the Lehigh University biochemist, in his forthcoming book, Darwin's Black Box, was a deeply serious, high-quality challenge to evolutionary theory. My intellectual integrity as a Darwinian was on the line. Would I debate him? I took their endorsement seriously, and not being a biochemist, I asked for their permission to team up with somebody who knew the technicalities better than I did. I passed on their endorsement of Behe's book to my friend, the eminent Harvard evolutionary biologist David Haig, and he agreed to join me. When copies of the book arrived, we were appalled. This was not at all a serious scientific book, but a hugely disingenuous propaganda full of telling omissions and misrepresentations. We went to Notre Dame in April and dealt firmly, fairly, and objectively with Behe's claims, pointing out that his arguments were not just inconclusive, they gave every sign of willfully ignoring contrary evidence and argument. It was precious little rebuttal at the meeting at Notre Dame, and I figured that Hay and I had done our duty. I noticed that Plantinga no longer expresses any endorsement of Behe's first book, but now gives his layman's approval to his second book. I'm not biting. I've paid my dues. I'm not going to debate about Behe's second book. Plantinga says, if Behe is right or anywhere near right, wait a minute. He says, if Behe is right or anywhere near right, the probability of the existence of the cell as we find it is much greater on theism than on naturalism. Now, since Plantinga is a layman, as he notes, he is really in no position to assess the antecedent of this claim. He finds the case that Behe makes is, quote, reasonably powerful, though far from conclusive. Well, now, where might an inquiring layman turn, then, for further evidence? He might turn to the scientific reviews, for instance, by Sean Carroll in Science, or, say, P.Z. Myers on his blog, for Intellect. Or he might consider the following probabilistic argument. This is my attempt at a probabilistic argument inspired by Alvin's example. So here's Plantinga's probabilistic argument. If Behe is right or anywhere near right, the probability of the existence of the cell as we find it is much greater on theism than on naturalism. Here's mine. Let Behe is right or anywhere nearly right, and let N be knowledgeable scientists rush to their labs to steal, that should be S-T-A-L, Behe's thunder and win the Nobel Prizes that will surely be awarded to anyone who demonstrates irreducible complexity. I submit that the probability of N on B is actually very high. Remember cold fusion? If Behe is right or anywhere near right, why aren't there hordes of evolutionary biologists and biochemists out there trying to beat him to the punch by actually demonstrating a case of irreducible complexity? The silence from that camp is deafening, and for good reason. So N is false. Therefore, the probability that Behe is right or anywhere near right is negligible. But Behe is right about something, and this is sort of an interesting point. The Discovery Institute has formed something called the Biologic Institute in Seattle. And this, they claim, is going to be a world-class microbiology laboratory where I suppose largely Christian, but in any case, intelligent, design-minded scientists will try to prove irreducible complexity. And what Behe is right about is that there are large gaps in our knowledge of how complex features evolve, the sort of complex features that Alvin was just talking about in the cell. Now, there's a reason for that, and that is that there are a lot of these problems that's really a difficult and a thankless task. One of the reasons that we haven't got to them yet is that microbiology is a young field, and there are many thousands of nooks and crannies that we just haven't got around to yet. But moreover, there are a lot of really major problems that haven't even been tackled.